So we have two families of operators. The first one is called the relational. The good news is they all look familiar to us, right? We all know less than, we all know greater than. The one difference is that less than or equals is going to be two symbols, not one, okay, because we can't do that on the keyboard. We talked about this new guy. This is different now because this is test for equality as opposed to assignment, okay? And then we also have this guy, which is not equals. Okay, now there's some important differences with these relationals, and this makes a big difference in logic. Let's say that I wrote something like okay, what's wrong with this? Okay, so that famous 21 birthday that you all wait for, this wouldn't work for that, right? This would really only work for people who were 22. So this is a logic error. It's pretty easy to make, especially at 2 in the morning. Okay, so how would I correct this issue so that it was, Colin? Greater than or equal to. So do you see the big difference between using the correct symbol based on what the problem calls for? Okay? So in the first example, 21 would not be a legal participant in imbibing. In this is correct, however, anyone 21 and older would be legal to drink. So you have to be careful with these limits. Okay. All right. Now these are a little more interesting because you haven't seen these before. So let's take a little bit of time with this today. Okay. These are called the logical operators. So we have the arithmetic. Check, piece of cake, only new one was modulus. We have the relational, most of us are familiar with those. These may be a little different for some of you guys. But this allows us to do a lot of more exciting things in the code, okay? So the actual symbol in C++ is not and, but instead we use the double ampersand to indicate and, okay? And we use the double vertical bar to indicate or, okay? So let's talk about and for a second. Now, we gave the example on Tuesday that an and is, so you decide, that you're going to finish your homework and you're going to clean your room and you're not going out unless both these things happen, okay? And that's how an and works, okay? So the only time we get a true in an and is what? Both of the conditions are true. Every single other one is false. So in an and, just like in English, both conditions must be met in order for the whole condition to be true. Okay? So for example, if I was going to write code for a scholarship, if GPA is greater than 3.5, if zip code equals 21012, and zip code equals 21012, and state equals Maryland. Okay? So the and means in that case what for the scholarship recipients? All those things must be true. So that would narrow my set down. Now, let's say it's 2 in the morning. You inadvertently, you're working for a company, and you inadvertently type or. Oops. What's going to happen? Yes, and so that would be a really large data set, right? So all the Maryland residents, all the people living in a zip code, and all the people with the 210, whatever that zip code is. So that would be a big problem. That would be a big mistake, okay? So one symbol can greatly change the logic of the code. Now, the or, on the other hand, would be used, when is an or true? So long as one or both are true. So the only time we get a false for an or statement is if they're both false. So an example of using an or might be if you're apartment hunting and you want to check several different zip codes. So you want to say if zip code equals 21012, or zip code equals 21286, or zip code equals 21210. And that means that you would show up sets of all three of those. If you inadvertently used and, what would happen to your apartment search? You would get no results because it's impossible for an apartment to exist in all three of those zip codes. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, there's something else about, and then the other guy is not. Not takes whatever it was and changes it to the opposite. So if you have some situation and you put the exclamation point in front of it, that changes it to the opposite of true or false.